Okay, so we're in chapter 3 and we're dealing with feedback intensive programs. Now, I know I've been going on and on about how this isn't just a program. You don't want to just think about leadership in your organization as a program that you're going to roll out and that's going to magically solve things. But what if you are going to a program or are going to conduct a program so that you can help disperse leadership into the organization, because that is a component part of how to go about instilling leadership into an organization. It doesn't stop there, but it's a component part. So here I want you to think of feedback intensive programs in terms of just kind of like what we're doing right now. Let's think about what we're engaged in this course. So this course is a feedback intensive program, and it has all of the attributes that you're going to see, or many of the attributes that you're going to see. In fact, the entire program itself, the graduate program that you're engaged in, is like a feedback intensive program on steroids. So let's talk about how this works. We're going to talk about what is a feedback program, the elements of assessment, challenge, and support. Remember that. Sustaining assessment, challenge, and support, outcomes of a feedback intensive program, and then what is going to happen if you're trying to do a feedback intensive program globally, that is in another context outside of the United States. And then how do you leverage the investment of the feedback intensive program? So the first question is, what is a feedback intensive program? And so you need to have certain things. So developmental tools, the things that you're going to do in the program, experiential exercises. Of course, you'll have direct teaching. That's going to be part of it, but that can't be all of it. One of the worst ways to learn is to directly lecture or to hear somebody lecture. You retain so very little as opposed to when you're actually involved in doing something. Peer coaching is a good use of time. Goal development and follow through is going to be very important if you're going to have lasting results. And then sometimes, in fact, very often, a feedback intensive program is going to be a face-to-face program with an online follow-up. So here, let's say we're kind of like that. The face-to-face part is our little lecturettes, okay? And then the follow-up is what we're going to be doing in our discussion board activities as we're interacting with each other and trying to help each other in a kind of peer coaching sort of way where we're answering each other's questions and helping each other along based on our own experience, okay? So elements of assessment include things like self-assessment, and we did, for example, program-wide, we did that in organizational behavior class, okay? We did lots of self-assessment, 360-degree assessment, assessment from fellow participants, and we're going to be doing a lot of that assessment from fellow participants in this particular course. Now, trust is important. Trust depends on the attention to confidentiality, rater anonymity, reliability, and validity of assessments, their cultural relevance, and whether data are used for developmental, now this is important, whether it's used for developmental versus performance appraisal or promotional purposes. Now, if you're using something for developmental purposes, so for example, we're trying something out and it's for developmental purposes just to see how you work with it, you have the flexibility to fail, to fall down, and it's a safe environment. If you're doing it for performance appraisal, hey, your next promotion or even your job might be on the line. So you have to distinguish between those two things. If you're trying to do both simultaneously, it won't work because there's now a heightened pressure in the performance appraisal when that comes into play. Okay, elements of challenge include things like simulations, trying to experience things, targeted exercises that will help you kind of understand, well, maybe I should do it this way, or maybe I should do it that way, or action learning projects, and they each are a kind of a graduated experience. Elements of support include facilitating participant learning. Now, that is as the instructor or the professor, trying to help you not do the work for you, but help you understand what it is that you need to be able to do and kind of coax you along and guide you through the process. But it's really a lot depends on your willingness to do what you need to do. Teaching the different learning styles. That is not just lecturing, but actually experiencing things and hearing this and seeing that, and different learning styles come into play, and that's going to be important. Integrating participants' organizational context. That is to bring real, live understanding about what it is that you're actually going through that you need to do in order to grow. When I was interviewing here at CSU, the vice president for academic affairs asked, well, you're a fairly young man. I'm 40. And in fact, I'm the youngest in my department. So I'm 40. So now other people might have more experience than you. How do you deal with that? And I said, well, what I would do is elicit their experience. What's it like in your environment? And then wrap the theory around it, and we can talk about that and compare the theory to their experience. He said, wow, that's really a good answer. And he approved, and obviously I'm here. But yeah, what is going on in your organizational context? How do we, not just swim in theory land, but actually deal with what is important and what you're facing day to day? Encouraging perspective sharing, that is trying to understand each other's perspectives. Encouraging the practice of new behaviors, that is that you get to field test those behaviors in a safe kind of environment. Or you get to do it on a limited scale where it's not going to be make or break. So some of the things that we asked you to do on the discussion boards that you're practicing, that you're going to try in your own organizational context, might be like this, where you're not doing a grand rollout of a change project, but you might be changing one or two little things in a meeting, and that would allow you to have that experience. Providing ample time for consolidation of feedback. Feedback, again, is going to be very important, so that is instilled into the way that we're doing the course. Now, sustaining assessment, challenge, and support through the implementation phase. So in most FIPs, you'd have some kind of follow-up. Maybe you'd meet together another time, or otherwise it would be online support after the residential FIP. And then you'd track goals and provide accountability. Now, if you don't track these goals and provide accountability, what happens? Human nature is such that without the incentives, you're not really going to do what you need to do. So here's an example. In the next 10 weeks, I will and describe your action plan. So let's hypothetically say I'm going to get to know all of my 12 reports, and I'm going to, I'm going to take them to lunch over these next 10 weeks and just talk to them, get to know them, their families, what their hobbies are, what they're interested in, just to understand who they are. Okay, so the evidence of my progress over the next 10 weeks will include these measurable results. Well, I can meaningfully speak about what makes Maxwell tick, or what makes Rachel tick, or how Ted is wired, or whatever it is, so that you understand who you're working with. Too often we have this crazy management mentality where we just think, well, they're in this box on the organizational chart. Well, that doesn't matter if they're in the box in the organizational chart. Do they fit? Maybe the organizational chart should be rearranged to fit the people that you have. That's called alignment. The personal benefit for me will be, well, it'll be a smoother functioning organization where we'll have a relationship rather than just this professional distance. Or the benefit to my organization will be I'll actually be able to use people to their capacity in the way that they're designed to function. For example, maybe I know that Rachel really likes math, and somebody else doing the same job really is not mathematically inclined and always struggles with that. But they both have to do something mathematical, and they both have to write press releases. Well, maybe designing or redesigning the structure, if you have the ability to do it, to allow the one that's not mathematically inclined to deal with all the written communications, and the one that's mathematically inclined to do all the analytics. That might be a better way of going about doing things. And my overall goals will be related to building and maintaining relationships. That's going to be my goals. Now, CCL, when they have tracked this, have found that the majority of developmental assignments have been about things like, well, building and maintaining relationships. I mean, look at the number of goals, building and maintaining relationships. Then second is managing self and self-improvement. Remember that first statement by Thales in the first lecture? The hardest thing is to know yourself. Okay, managing self and self-improvement. All the others are, pale in contrast when you start moving down the line. So the outcomes of feedback-intensive program, of those who participate in the CCL Phase 3 follow-up survey, 99% of respondents and their observers reported immediate improved self-awareness, interpersonal skills, ability to lead change, resilience, and goal-setting skills. Now, that's not everyone. That's everybody who followed up. But wow, if you're going through the program, for example, our program, and then you track your results, and you set the objectives, you track the results, you see an increase because you're focused on this now. Using a feedback-intensive program globally. Now, this is an important warning, okay? You got to take diversity into account. A powerful global FIP starts with a design that takes diversity into account. Why? Because not everything works in a cross-cultural context that works in an American context. So we got to be aware of that. And then leveraging the investment, lack of manager involvement, we've heard that before, is the most common reason that training fails to produce improved performance. So managers will say, go do this training, and then they don't really follow up. Now, if your manager says, hey, go to this training and then let's set some goals, come back to me and tell me about what you're planning to do with what you've had here, and we ask periodically, how's this been working, and let's see what you've done to improve or whatever, then you have some accountability in the process. Now, the question is, what are you going to do with what we've talked about so far? Okay, because this course is going to be an example of an FIP. We're not meeting face to face, but you're listening to the lectures. You're going to be doing these assignments that are going to be pushing you a little bit, trying to get you to expand your maybe your range of comfort. And you're going to be doing these. You're going to get peer review from your classmates, and then we're going to be tracking these results over the entire semester. So, what are you going to do with this? This is important because if you are managing anybody, you're more important to that person that you're managing than the CEO of your organization on a day-to-day basis. And they deserve to be treated well by you as a leader. They deserve to have their hopes and dreams and aspirations taken into account. And if you're leading them well, they're going to be far more satisfied. You really don't want to be the person that they're talking bad about when they get home and kick the dog and are upset at their wife because of what they had in the office because of you. So think through what it is that you want to get out of this FIP that we call the Leadership Development course, and you'll have a much greater, robust experience. Okay? I'll talk to you in the next chapter. Thank you for your attention.